الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد أشرف الخلق وسيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم واغفر لنا في هذه الساعة أجمعين وهب المسيئين منا للمحسنين. اللهم حسن أخلاقنا، اللهم حسن أخلاقنا، اللهم حسن أخلاقنا، اللهم اغفر ذنوبنا واستر عيوبنا، اللهم اختم بالباقيات الصالحات أعمالنا، اللهم خلقنا بأخلاق نبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وارزقنا اقتفاء أثره واتباع سنته. اللهم احشرنا في زمرته وأسقنا من يده الشريفة شربة لا نظمأ بعدها أبدا. آمين آمين. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. أما بعد, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept this first day of fasting from us in this blessed month of Ramadan. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us, facilitate it for us. May Allah Azza wa Jal make us of those who observe fasting inwardly and outwardly. Fasting from food and drink, and fasting from everything that's displeasing to Allah Azza wa Jal, and fasting from everything that distracts away from Him subhanahu. Allahumma ameen, Allahumma ameen. This is the first khatira, a Fajr khatira for the month. And in it we're going to introduce the subject of the month, which is in the theme of إِنَّمَا بُعِثْتُ لِأُتَمِّمَ مَكَارِمَ الْأَخْلَاقِ. I was sent to perfect the noble character. And in each Fajr Khatira, we're going to be going over a verse that relates to character. In the evening Khawatir, pre-Isha, we're going to be going over one of the concepts in Islamic character, Islamic etiquette. And inshallah, it's going to be wide and expansive, including things relating to family, things relating to society, things relating to my relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal, and my relationship with people. And for the very first Fajr Khatira, we have the greatest source of learning character. Al-Habib Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, in Surah Al-Qalam, verse 4, Allah Azza wa Jal describes him as وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. Allah Azza wa Jal, when He sent revelation, He sent with it the interpretation of this revelation. And that is the character of the Prophet. And this is what Allah Azza wa Jal never sent a manual without a model. This is what Allah Azza wa Jal did with all prophets and messengers. Because of our nature as human beings, that we are affected and influenced by the characters of others. We need an example to follow. And for us, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is khayrul khalqi ajma'in bila munazi' wa bila jidal. Without any question, our beloved Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is the most beloved to Allah Azza wa Jal, the best of Allah's creation categorically. And we love our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam because he is hamil al-risala, the carrier of the message, and because of his beautiful soul. The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam described in this verse, and indeed you are upon esteemed character. The Prophet ﷺ had a very beautiful soul. And he teaches us, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, that Iman is actualized within when it's felt on the outside, with our behaviors, the way we talk, the way we treat people, the way we act in public and in private, the way we deal with family, the way we deal with friend, the way we deal with foe. These are interpretations of my Iman. There's no way that I could mature in my faith without it changing me as a person. That's what we learned from the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ tells us in this hadith, it shows us the importance of husn al-khuluq, importance of good character. He addresses Sayyidina Abu Dharr and he says the following, Ya Aba Dharr, ألا أدلك على خصلتين هما خفيفتان على الظهر وأثقل في الميزان من غيرهما. قال بلى يا رسول الله. قال عليك بحسن الخلق وطول الصمت فوالذي نفسي بيده ما عمل الخلائق بمثلهما. It's authentic hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. He tells Abu Dharr, you want to know two characteristics that are very light on your back, very heavy in your scale. Subhanallah, very heavy in your scale, very light on the back. In what sense? Husn al-khuluq makes life easy. Su' al-khuluq makes life very complicated. Right? Husn al-khuluq can allow a person to attain a station that's higher than fasting, praying, and charity. It is superior to all of these. So the Prophet ﷺ describes it as being heavier in the scale. He said, good character and long periods of silence, وَطُولِ الصَّمْتِ, and by the one who my soul is in his hands, so الَّذِي نَفْسِي بِيَدِهِ مَا عَمِلَ الْخَلَائِقُ بِمِثْلِهِمَا. People never could practice something greater than these two. Being quiet, silent a lot of the time, and having good character. Now our beloved Prophet ﷺ had such a captivating nature to him ﷺ. They loved him because of how he was with them. As the Quran describes, وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا, even you, O Muhammad ﷺ, with your maqam and your status. وَلَوْ كُنْتَ, who's being addressed? The Prophet, not me, not you. وَلَوْ كُنْتَ فَضًّا غَلِيظَ الْقَلْبِ لَنْفَضُّوا مِنْ حَوْلِكَ. Even the best of people, if that person is rough in character, lacks goodness in his akhlaq, then people would not stand to be in his presence. Husn al-khuluq is beautiful. Su' al-khuluq is very ugly. And that's why this is about one of the beautiful characteristics, rifq, for example. The Prophet ﷺ tells us, إِنَّ الرِّفْقَ لَا يَكُونُ فِي شَيْءٍ إِلَّا زَانَهُ وَلَا يُنْتَزَعُ مِنْ شَيْءٍ إِلَّا شَانَهُ. Rifq, gentle ease, whenever it's in something, it makes it beautiful. And whenever it's removed from something, that something might be beautiful in itself. We might be talking about deen, but no rifq. Rifq, gentle ease, is removed from the way that we're expressing deen. وَلَا يُنْتَزَعُ مِنْ شَيْءٍ إِلَّا شَانَهُ. Whenever gentle ease is removed from the equation, it'll make the thing appear very ugly. SubhanAllah, very true. Our Prophet ﷺ, his khuluq was described in a very long hadith in Shama'il. If you want to learn about the detailed character of our Prophet ﷺ, then I encourage to read and study the science of Shama'il, which goes over the Prophet ﷺ's khalq and khuluq, the Prophet's appearance and the Prophet ﷺ's character. So this hadith, part of it, just says the following. Prophet ﷺ, كان لا يذم أحدا ولا يعيره ولا يطلب عورته ولا يتكلم إلا فيما رجى ثوابه. A very short statement that has the capacity to resolve perhaps most of the disputes and conflicts that happens between people in their relationships. Prophet ﷺ would not put down people. The Prophet ﷺ would not pursue their flaws. The Prophet ﷺ would not speak about anything unless it was constructive. وَلَا يَتَكَلَّمُ إِلَّا فِيمَا رَجَى ثَوَابَهُ. So the Prophet ﷺ's words gather. They don't divide. There's no way that someone could say they're calling to the message of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam and the sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, yet their presentation is very divisive, very destructive. لا يمكن أن ينسب ذلك للحبيب محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم أبدا. No way. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم teaches us treatment that relieves us of heartache and pain. Wallahi, when we start thinking about our life experiences through this lens, I will start realizing it is true. Indeed, human beings are often the engineers of their own demise, or they work towards their own prosperity. When I suffer and face difficulty, it's often going back to these basic things. Look at this hadith, the Prophet about ta'yir. Since we learned the Prophet never pursued people's flaws. Wallahi, it's so tempting to do. It's so easy to do. I do something, this person doesn't. I am better, that person's worst. Wallahi, it's the easiest zalla, the easiest slip from the shaitan. The Prophet ﷺ says in the hadith, this is a scary hadith, مَنْ عَيَّرَ أَخَاهُ بِذَنْبٍ لَمْ يَمُتْ حَتَّى يَعْمَلَهُ. It's a hadith in Sunan al-Tirmidhi. Right? So this hadith says, whoever criticizes his brother for a flaw, that person won't die until he himself experiences and tastes what it's like to fall in that sin. And we learn from our salaf, beauty of character. إِنِّي لَأَرَى الشَّيْءَ أَكْرَهُ فَمَا يَمْنَعُنِي أَنْ أَتَكَلَّمَ فِيهِ إِلَّا مَخَافَةَ أَنْ أُبْتَلَى بِمِثْلِهِ. I see something I don't like, But what do? I hold this. Why? Because I'm afraid. I am in a ni'mah. If I criticize, perhaps I'm next tomorrow. وهكذا يعلمنا النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. When we learn about the Prophet's character, we can endlessly talk about the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم's loyalty. We could endlessly talk about the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم's patience. We could endlessly talk about the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم as a teacher. There are so many examples. Perhaps I'll give you one. And this is something that shows us what the Prophet meant to people. The Prophet ﷺ was qadi al-hajat. The Prophet ﷺ was there for people. This is min husn al-khuluq. It is of the most beautiful character. If I see someone down, I bring them up. If I see someone up, I boost them up more. This is khuluq al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So the Prophet ﷺ was the fulfiller of needs. And one time he walks in the masjid. The hadith mentions دخل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ذات يوم المسجد فإذا هو برجل من الأنصار يقال له أبو أمامة. Prophet ﷺ saw one of the companions in the masjid. His name is Abu Umama. And he tells him, يا أبا أمامة ما لي أراك جالسا في المسجد في غير وقت الصلاة. Oh Abu Umama, why are you sitting in the masjid and it's not time for salah? What are you doing? Prophet ﷺ cared. He cared about people. This is why people loved him. He was a person of deep empathy and deep compassion. So Sayyidina Abu Umama said, هموم لزمتني وديون يا رسول الله. I'm full of humum, concerns, and I'm overwhelmed with debt, O Prophet of Allah. So then the Prophet ﷺ, the one who Allah Azza wa Jal taught us to identify mercy through. Allah Azza wa Jal is Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, and the Prophet ﷺ is for the mu'mineen Ra'ufur Rahim, as the Quran describes. Bil mu'mineen Ra'ufur Rahim. So the Prophet ﷺ tells him, أفلا أعلمك كلاما إذا أنت قلته أذهب الله عز وجل همك وقضى عنك دينك. You want to learn words? If you say these words, Allah Azza wa Jal will remove those concerns you have. Allah Azza wa Jal will repay that debt that you have. So then the Prophet ﷺ said to him, قل إذا أصبحت وإذا أمسيت اللهم إني أعوذ بك من الهم والحزن وأعوذ بك من العجز والكسل وأعوذ بك من الجبن والبخل وأعوذ بك من غلبة الدين وقهر الرجال. Prophet ﷺ told him to say the famous dua that's in Adhkar al-Sabah wal-Masa. Say, oh Allah, I seek refuge in you from concern and from worry and from inability and from laziness and from cowardice and from miserliness. And I seek refuge in you from being overwhelmed by debt and subjugated by people. Du'a'un jami' min ad'iyyat al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. The Prophet ﷺ was Nabi al-Rahmah. The hadith describes, إني لم أبعث لعانا ولكني بعثت داعيا ورحمة اللهم اهد قومي فإنهم لا يعلمون. Oh Allah, guide my people. The Prophet ﷺ said, I wasn't sent as someone who prayed for the damnation of people. I was sent as a da'iyah and as a source of mercy. And then he said, oh Allah, guide my people, for they don't know. And again, in the coming days, we're going to get exposed to some of the most beautiful akhlaq in our Islam, like loyalty, like wisdom, like courage, like patience, and a lot of other akhlaq. I pray that Allah Azza wa Jal blesses this journey that we have together in this month as we reflect on akhlaq, and hopefully through that become better people in our dealings. Allahumma ameen. Subhanakallahumma bihamdik. نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.